So, really quickly talking about the provenance here, I found this linked to a Pinterest pin, which linked to this website, probably like September or fall of 2016 that I remember, because I think I found the Spiritus picture the same day. And then it was like May 2017 that I started analyzing it and making videos that summer. And then I found this person, their name calling. So, I mean, I mentioned artists and just all these people, and I'd contacted her just being like, I don't know. Maybe you could persuade them to take it down because I think something's gonna happen. I was just kept finding out so many things, especially the provenance it was 2018 when I contacted her. So I hadn't even owned it barely a year, but it was just amazing the things I was finding out. And I was just kind of, just for you and your benefit and your professionalism, like being connected with this, with comments like, calling him what a fool. One person says that, and then she herself, and even there's Rick Grunder commenting. And I found, Curtis Weber commenting and frequenting. So I think they're all friends, like an artist and Jared T are really are friends, just really, what a hoot. Dunderhead, just sort of all this name calling, you fool, you tool, crown of Dunder. I was just like, wow, like, do you want? It's immortalized no matter what, even if they retract it. So I just did try to persuade her to retract it, and she would just didn't say much, but she was very angry. So it was a little dramatic just for that. She really just did not want to discuss it, and I showed her all the evidence I had that I think this is him, and here's this guy, he's calling it a daguerreotype. This is a carte de visite. It's not even a daguerreotype, but it possibly copied from a daguerreotype because this guy thought it was too, and so did. So that's really three people that think it's copied from a daguerreotype. A bunch of, this person has a bunch of daguerreotypes. Well, they're carte de visites, even says here, if you actually read it. So this guy, even though bad grammar, he knows more than they do already. Than I from everything I know. He explains that that Smith ID'd photos in it. Anyway, but it's a Smith family album. But then, one person's, well, I just don't think it makes any sense that someone could just not know they have a photograph of Joseph Smith, but direct descendant even told me it's possible someone could have had it and just not know what they had, because Gracie Jones did not know. She's a modern descendant and like a historian, but she didn't grow up being told proudly she's a descendant of Joseph Smith. It was when she was like a teenager, and they were like, don't tell anyone. So the likelihood someone could have it and not know what they have is very, very high. And the likelihood they would hide it or not want to write. I mean, Emma, they weren't so afraid. They wrote, this is, Mrs. Joseph Smith. But his photo, I think they would have been afraid of being stolen or burned, or they would have probably been hiding it. My opinion. Totally my opinion. And then another person was just like, well, your picture, I don't know how. It's an 1860s carte de visite. And so Joseph Smith was dead, so it can't be him. And J.S. Bibbins, I think they said J.S. Bibbins would have been too young in 1844. He actually wasn't. He was in his 20s because he was born in 1821, 1844, 23. There was a presidential campaign, but I just said, well, I think it's a copy of the daguerreotype. Oh, no, can't be. And they just like mocked me. It just echoed and sounded like the wording of people, anyone from here, And I think I figured out who he was, and I just contacted that person because that also was a historian. He's probably someone who probably would have contacted on there, and then immediately there was that person saying this. They just blew it off so quick. And this person's stupid, bad grammar, blah blah. So but this is an 1860s carte de visite because cabinet cards came up in the 1870s, and they just kept it. Just photography progressed so quick, and the quality of the paper, but daguerreotypes didn't stay popular because this happened to them. You can go to 50 Relics of Restoration, chapter 17 or so. I don't know why they've got women's underwear. That's funny. Of course, they put that on the cover, but it's if you even have like the app, my mom has the app, so she didn't have to pay anything and just found this book and chapter 17, a really nice, huge copy. So you 100% know that's this, but we know it's about 1845 because it's Dave. It says Mrs. Joseph Smith. This is Julia Murdoch Smith, oldest child of Joseph and Emma, not biological. She was adopted, but the oldest. She's like 13 when David Hale Smith was born. But she wrote in pencil, Mrs. Joseph Smith's son Dave, born 3 months after his father was killed. And then to descendants today, just grew up afraid of the Church of Christ of Latter-day Saints, so they're not going to share, the descendants themselves. I mean, whereas it's only even till 2017 that the Saints Herald, right here, Rachel Curl, you can look up the news article about this, but it was 2017 when the Saints Herald, which shows the evidence that this forward-facing painting really probably was David Roger. Either way, it was for sure from life, because this is the Saints Herald. This is 15th August 1879. Joseph III was the editor, and he 100% had all of, because it was 2 weeks later that he was the one getting this made. This is his newspaper. The facts are going to be accurate. Okay, someone tried to say, well, it could have been someone, they could have been inaccurate. And I'm like, no. He's the one that set this up to be photographed. He's the one that set it up and made business dealing with Lewis and writing. He's the one who wrote letters and talked to Janie Robson. He's going to make sure this advertisement is, which states, pictures of Joseph Smith. You would think, oh, this is a photo of Joseph Smith. Photograph copies, authentic front view, painting of Joseph Smith. This was taken by a painter from New York when Joseph was about 36 years old. He died 38. He was alive when this painting was done. I think Emma told the sons, your dad was 36 on the letters. And at one point he says, 1843, he would have been 38. Around then, yeah. So 37, sorry, not 36. 37, December 23rd, 1842. So it was from life. The artist was from New York, so that is not William Major, who was from England and wasn't there before Joseph Smith died. He couldn't have done a life painting of Joseph Smith. It's like in 1930s news article where they say there's a forward-facing painting by William Major, but no one was alive that could have been there, when that was printed. So, but, you've got Emma Smith, and just to kind of give some perspective, like a lot of her siblings, for sure, Elizabeth was living in Illinois. So like her motivation to stay in Illinois, I'm just going to show you that and show you all these people that live near Amboy. And so Joseph Smith III it's like page 80, 82 or so of Memoirs of President Joseph Smith III when he's visiting these saints. So he's coming from Nauvoo. Amboy's sort of in the middle. So he also visited his Aunt Lucy. But he does talk about in his travels staying with this aunt, but also you've got a bunch of uncles in Amboy. Amboy's sort of in between Nauvoo. So 1860, he's just traveling to see his saints in Kendall County, Illinois. In October 1860, he's extremely close to Newark. Very well might have been in Newark. Anyway, Amboy, Alva, Amboy. These are all of his uncles. And some of these uncles might have really loved Joseph Smith. We just don't know. There was some animosity with her family members, but some of her brothers were scribes for the Book of Mormon. So Joseph Smith III might have been like, yeah, sure, here's a little flimsy paper corrective date, and I'll just maybe go get this copied again. I don't think, and the photographer probably wouldn't tell them, oh, they took this out of the case, and it would have a cover. It would block light out. So it's just early daguerreotypes didn't stay popular because they didn't last long. They oxidized, they turned black, they turned dark. And so again, just going through, there's David Hale, also Amboy, you know. It also could have been an aunt. Here's Sophronia. She lived in Illinois. William, I'm going to give a link. I'll give a link to one of my videos where a William with a different middle name, Smith, appears to have possibly been next door neighbors to J.S. Bibbins. Of course, looking at historical records, it's hard to place him in Newark, but for sure he was interacting with Joseph Smith III and was very poor and maybe just living with different people. And he had plural wives, several of them, but I've heard that almost all of them left him. His wife died actually soon after Joseph Smith died. So there was that. So he had a wife that died. So he was a widower, but he also had a bunch of plural wives, and it didn't work out. But he had kids with some of them. You can see where just some of these broken families, or just people that knew Joseph Smith but weren't members of the church, and maybe they also were afraid to write Joseph Smith on a piece of paper, or just forget, or they're a little bit more, yeah. And then there's Lucy. He definitely visited Aunt Lucy. I think I could see him getting a daguerreotype copy and being, Carrie, Aunt Lucy kept saying she was his favorite aunt, so he visited her a lot and talked to her a lot, and he was very close to her. I do know that from his memoirs. So I don't find it inconceivable that a daguerreotype of Joseph Smith was copied onto paper cards of Zete, and then that was just sort of forgotten, and people just didn't know what they had. Even a direct descendant said that's possible. They weren't like super like gung-ho supportive, which is fine. You don't have to be, but she also talks about getting her negative copied, so you can just go through this and read. I need to fix this because I'm looking for this because I go straight. I need to put the call number down here, so if you want to fact check these or just read this, or verify that this all exists, and a lot of these, as I've mentioned before. Okay, so there's two different things, so I think I need to fix this. But there were letters from David Hale. I think this was digitally. I read this digitally, whereas down here, yeah, this is the microfilm. So the letters from Emma. So I go from letters Emma to letters from David Hale. They're different locations. One was digital. I had to read microfilm. But this microfilm, I think it's at BYU. I think it's also in California. Because I think there were several copies of the microfilm, so they shared it with several universities. So you don't even have to necessarily be in maybe even the United States. It could be in Australia, maybe. I don't know. But because there's a lot of descendants there, and there's a reorganized Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints that's now the Community of Christ, does exist in Australia, and they very well could have these letters, so you could just check at your university if you're in Australia, and if you're fact checking this there, you can just check and see, are there these Bideman, I know it started with Bideman, it was the Bideman letters, because he was one that inherited all of Emma's stuff. He was her second husband, so that's why he's called the Bideman. So I'm going to edit this so that this makes more sense. So if you're trying to find where's the access number and microfilm, but I went specifically to Salt Lake City to the church history library and got to look at the microfilm. I spent probably 2 hours one night trying to read the microfilm and not being able to, and getting a migraine. And then the next day someone actually showed me how to use the microfilm machine. So thank you to that person that actually showed me how to focus it the next day. Person who didn't help me that Monday. That's not very nice. It's just like, I don't know how to work it, and just was really nuts. So you might have someone help you know how to use microfilm, and someone who has no idea what they're doing, or they just don't care to help you. So it's often volunteers when you go there, but whereas universities, it's probably different. But yeah, it could be in Australia. Could just check it out. Anyway, have a good day.